In the Marxist view, there are two levels of life. Let's say there are two levels in society. The first is the base. And the base is the bourgeois class. Now, what is the base? Everything related to economy is the base. So this is represented by the bourgeois class. It defines how work has to be done, what has to be done, how it has to be done. So this is the system, this is how it works, and this is how it's going to be. This is the base, this is the infrastructure. Now, over this, you have the superstructure. And the superstructure is the proletariat, the working class. The base is the class, the bourgeois, which is going to control the economy. And the proletariat is the superstructure. And just as we saw, what is at the base? At the base, you have economy, the infrastructure. And the superstructure is something on top of all this, on top of the base. That is the proletariat, the working class. So what is in that superstructure? Just as at the base you have economy, what is here at the superstructure? Everything related to life. Law, education, religion, literature, culture, everything is going to be a part of that superstructure. So what will happen? The class which is at the base is actually going to influence everything that is going upwards from the base, from that economy. Everything that's moving upwards is going to be influenced by this base. And so the means of production, everything that the base controls, whatever is going to be produced, whatever is going to be consumed, whatever is going to be taught, the kind of culture which will have to be accepted, the kind of education that is going to come up, everything is going to be dictated by the base, by the bourgeois class. And the proletariat is going to gradually accept the whole system, and then it becomes a victim of that mindset that this is how it is and this is how it's always going to be, and this is perhaps the right thing. If we look at the Frankfurt School, the intellectuals of the Frankfurt School, first let's look at what this Frankfurt School is all about. There was this man called Felix Weil in Frankfurt. He was a scholar, and his father was a rich grain merchant. And this man, Felix Weil, wanted to use that money from his father for funding an institute which would study Marxism in Germany. And so he donated a large sum of money, and the Institute for Social Research at the University of Frankfurt, this was started. It began in the year 1923, and a Marxist scholar called Karl Grunberg became its first director in 1923, and he will continue to be director till 1929. In 1930, another Marxist scholar called Max Horkheimer will become the director. This is the year 1930. And Max Horkheimer is a prominent name of this Frankfurt School because he's the man who's going to give us that term critical theory. He'll write a book in 1937 called Traditional and Critical Theory, and in that he will explain some things. He will explain why traditional theory cannot be called critical theory, and he is going to be one of the major figures here. In 1933, now all that Nazi influence has started and these people will be asked to close down, and so they will hurriedly shift and go over to Geneva, and they will be there for 2 years, and from Geneva then they'll proceed to the US, and they will become a part of the Columbia University. And then later on, after the Second World War is over and all that, somewhere around 1953, again they will return to Frankfurt. Now the Frankfurt School was trying to revision Marxist ideas. It was trying to take a fresh look at Marxist ideas, and it was greatly concerned about mass culture, mass media. This mass thing was bothering them. And why it became bothersome for them was that they felt that technology, and because of advancements in technology, there is mass production, and so culture is becoming a kind of factory. Things are being churned out, and people are uniformly receiving some things in the name of culture. They are uniformly receiving the same kind of things in the name of culture, and somehow they are presented as standards. This is making people passive. Max Horkheimer will be joined by another intellectual called Theodor Adorno. And Theodor Adorno is going to give us the term culture industry. He and Max Horkheimer will get together and they will author some texts. We will look at the texts separately. So culture industry, where there is mass production and people are sitting and viewing the same thing and they are being handed down the same things in the name of culture, and this is going to be dangerous for people in society because they'll become passive and they'll stop thinking and they will passively receive whatever is being given to them. And the scholars of the Frankfurt School did not want this. The other scholars of the Frankfurt School, we saw Max Horkheimer, we saw Theodor Adorno, then Herbert Marcuse, and after Herbert Marcuse you will have Leo Lowenthal. You will also have Erich Fromm, and there will be intellectuals like these, and they will make major contributions here. The Frankfurt School made a huge contribution because it opened the way for popular culture to become a subject in the academic world, and popular culture actually began to be studied because of the efforts of these Frankfurt School people. Popular culture began to be studied. Theories about popular culture came up. And so this field began to attract the interests of many, many people. This was one of the major influences on cultural studies. The intellectuals related to the Frankfurt School were Max Horkheimer, Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, Walter Benjamin, Friedrich Pollock, Leo Lowenthal, Erich Fromm. These 7 names at least you should know related to the Frankfurt School. Now there was a scholar, a theorist, a critic, an intellectual called Georg Lukács. He was a Hungarian, and he exerted an influence on the Frankfurt School and on this intellectual called Walter Benjamin. Walter Benjamin, and later on we'll read about Frederick Jameson. These 2 people are going to be influenced by Georg Lukács. Now, we need not think that this man belonged to the Frankfurt School. That was not. We've already taken the names of those 7 people whom you should know in connection with the Frankfurt School. But Georg Lukács exerted a lot of influence on the Frankfurt School. Now we can move on, and another thing, very important thing about this man was that he has given us the term reification. What does that term reification really mean? In an earlier video, we did Marx's idea of alienation, if you remember. Now, reification is a very specialized kind of alienation. This term has come to us from this Hungarian intellectual, Georg Lukács. And what does reification mean? It means that somehow, by some process, the human is getting converted into a kind of thing. Instead of behaving with humanness as humans would, somehow a change is happening and a thingness is descending upon them. When you become very passive, and so you're not acting where you need to act, you're just passively receiving, you're allowing an object to control you so much that that object becomes more powerful than you are. Something like this is implied in the term reification. Let's look at another intellectual from Italy called Antonio Gramsci. And this is the man who's going to give us a very important term called cultural hegemony. Hegemony means domination. Cultural hegemony. So, what does cultural hegemony mean? What does this mean? What it means is that somehow the whole idea of culture and everything that it entails, that is manipulated. It is manipulated by those who are in power and we don't realize it. So cultural hegemony is a term which comes to us from this Italian intellectual Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci had a very great influence on one of the greatest scholars of British cultural studies, Stuart Hall. He also exerted an influence on Edward Said. You'll study Orientalism and things. So Stuart Hall, Edward Said, and then Louis Althusser. These are going to be influenced by Antonio Gramsci. We saw that this man, this scholar Max Horkheimer, he was one of the leading figures in that Frankfurt School, and he became its director in 1930.